Mikey Erg, and I would do like an intro, but I can't possibly list all the bands that you've been in. So, so yeah, I guess I'll just get started. Um, so did you want to tell us like a little bit about like your childhood and how you got started in music?
Yeah. Well, I grew up in my dad was in a very popular cover band in New Jersey for my essentially my entire childhood, and also owned a recording studio. Um, so I grew up around music, a ton of music, and through him and through his like record collection, I just from a very young age, I was super interested in music. Like it's all I cared about for my entire life, pretty much. My mom says my first words were "yeah, yeah, yeah," because I love the Beatles so much. Um, so I don't know why, but I was just immediately, I was just born loving music, and and then growing up around it so much, there was always records and drums around, and my dad was a drummer in the cover band. So like, uh, I'd go to the studio pretty much every day and just bang on the drums, and yeah. So I just grew up around it, and it was yeah, a good way to
I
grow
mean,
up.
sounds amazing. I would love to hear like how people discovered music, or if it was just like they were brought up into it, or it was something that they found on their own, or
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think it must have been in my blood from from birth, because it's I've always been interested in it, like even just when I was a year or 2 years old, just was always drawn to
remember that
music.
far back.
I I've been told. I've been told that all I like whenever we would go to my grandmother's house, I would just point to the closet where I knew that my mom's old records were, and they'd get the records out, and we would just listen to records all afternoon. Like so, yeah. It's I know that that's all I cared about.
Did you try any like other like creative outlets when you were younger?
No, I was never interested in literally anything else. It was I don't know why. Like never was never interested in sports. Never interested in like art or drawing or anything. It was all music. Yeah, it was. It's
So
crazy.
what was like what was the first piece of music that you purchased yourself?
Well, we would go every. I remember every weekend we would go to my grandparents' house, and uh, they would we'd go to the mall, and I would just go to the record store, and they would buy things for me because I was a spoiled child. But we would listen to American Top 40 on the way, and I would like pick out the songs I liked, and we would buy the singles. I remember "Rhythm of the Night" by DeBarge was a very early purchase of mine in the early '80s. I was obsessed with "Thriller" by Michael Jackson. I feel like I bought. I don't think I knew that you could early on. I don't think I knew you could buy other records. Like I think I in my brain you picked out the one record you like and you just kept buying that. So I had like 4 or 5 copies of Thriller, which is good because I was 2, 3 years old and would thrash them, and I didn't know how to take care of my records back then. Um,
That's
so it was
great.
good that I had a bunch of different copies of that. Bruce Springsteen, "Born in the USA" was a huge one back in the day. "Purple Rain" by Prince was huge. "She's So Unusual" by Cyndi Lauper. I remember those being very early favorite records of mine. 1984 by Van Halen. The list goes on and on. Uh, yeah, and and of course the like I would pick out. My mom had all the Beatles singles. I took them when I was very young. My dad had kind of, I don't remember him ever really listening to his record. I don't even know if we had a record player at the house, but he had all of his vinyl there. So I would just go through it at a very young age, and I would just marvel at the album covers. You know, I don't even we couldn't. I don't think we had a record player then, but I would look at them, and just I remember these covers just looking so cool, and these just gigantic albums. And then eventually, kind of probably when I was like 4 or 5 or 6, like we would I got like a Fisher Price record player, and that's when I would start listening to all these records. But yeah, it's all I ever cared about.
Fisher Price record player. I love that. Did you learn like the Thriller dance?
No, I mean I definitely watched that video a million times, but yeah, dancing was never anything I could ever do either. So, but it fascinated me to watch the video, and but yeah, I love that became a thing for a while where people would just kind of meet up and do the Thriller dance. But like, yeah, that was never my thing. Dancing in front of people was never my thing.
Yeah, I remember being like terrified of that video when I was a child.
Me too, but I loved the song so much that I just would force myself to watch it, even though it terrified me.
Cover your eyes.
Yeah. And then, like, you know, once you watch it, you see you can visualize it, and then whenever I would listen to the song, I would get terrified. I don't know.
So what was the first like concert you had attended?
The Jacksons on the it was essentially, I can't remember, I think it was the Victory Tour. It was essentially Thriller had come out, but I guess Michael Jackson must have been contractually obligated to go out with the Jacksons, or there was like the Thriller tour was pretty much a Jackson 5 tour or a Jacksons tour, but it was, you know, it was in a giant stadium because Michael Jackson had become this phenomenon, and that was my favorite thing in the world at that point. So my parents took me to see that show, and I don't remember it at all, but I know I was there because I think I was like 2 or 3. But that was the first one, and then in '87 I saw the New Kids on the Block at Giant Stadium, and that was my second ever show. Yeah, with Tiffany opening, I believe. That was a pretty great show. And I didn't really see anything else until I got into like local punk music, and the first like club show I ever saw was Silverchair when Frog Stomp came out. They played at the Stone Pony, and I remember it was the first like general admission show I'd ever been to, and it was insane to be just in a room, like not in seats in a big stadium. That was the only experience I'd ever had before that. So it was definitely weird to be just in this gigantic room with the band just right in front of me, and I think I went like found a spot in the corner to like kind of hide and not be in like the mosh pit because I didn't want to get moshed. But so that was the first like real rock show I'd ever seen.
When was like it's so funny explaining like, no, there's no seats at this show.
Yeah. I don't know what. Yeah, I wasn't expecting that for some reason, like, because I think I'd only ever had, and there, you know, I don't really know why I hadn't gone to see anything before that, because that was when I was 15, I think, and so in that weird kind of like from 10 to 15 when I was absolutely crazy into music, I never bothered like finding out whether, you know, like I never saw like Nirvana, even though I was into them at the time, because I didn't know they played shows, I guess. I don't know. Like, you know, there was like a weird period where I just didn't know shows were happening. So I never saw any club shows up until that point.
Dang, could have seen Nirvana. What?
I could have, yeah. I could, yeah. It's
You're like, don't remind me.
yeah, exactly, because it's, you know, I know that they're like my older sister went and saw Nirvana right on the In Utero tour, and I think there was like a moment where they were gonna take me, and then something ended up not happening, but it definitely was an option for me to see Nirvana, but I wasn't even like plugged into the fact that could have happened.
Now you look back and you're like, dang it.
Oh, it's my biggest regret, definitely. Yeah.
Exactly. So what changed? Like, how did you discover like punk music? Was that just
Yeah, I think you know, I think probably most people my age, like Green Day, hearing Green Day on the radio. I remember Green Day, like Rancid, seeing Salvation on 120 Minutes because I was an avid watcher of all MTV and especially like 120 Minutes on Sunday nights. I'm positive that I bought Let's Go pretty early on, and Dookie, and you know, and even being in Nirvana before that, knowing that they kind of came from punk rock, like having read magazine articles about Nirvana, like you kind of start finding out about this stuff. But yeah, I definitely think Green Day and Rancid, and then around then I kind of got into like the Sex Pistols and the Clash, like kind of hearing about the, you know, the 70s stuff and getting into that. Jonathan Richman was an early punk thing that I got into. And then kind of around the same time, maybe 95, I got plugged into like the area I came from, Old Bridge, New Jersey, which is like kind of right outside New Brunswick. But in Old Bridge, there was this scene of a lot of hall shows, VFWs, and fire halls and stuff that would have like local punk rock shows. So I was kind of going to that at the same time as I was finding out about Green Day, Rancid, and all that stuff, and then that eventually led to me getting into like NoFX and Pennywise and the Epitaph kind of axis, and then that was probably around 96, and that's when the tidal wave of just like finding out about all of this awesome underground stuff, like reading Maximum Rock and Roll and then looking at the classified ads in the back and seeing like you could mail order 7 inches from weird random towns in like Indiana and get and find out about this band that you've never heard of, you know, like, and that's like 96 is when the huge, like, that all I cared about was punk rock at that point. Like, sold all of my Led Zeppelin and Rush CDs and and bought punk rock records, and then, you know, 3 years later bought everything back again because I realized you don't only have to listen to punk, you can listen to a bunch of other stuff too. But yeah, that was like the, you know, getting into all of that stuff around this in that like couple year period. Yeah, right. Which is such a wonderful, like, thinking back, just having this whole world open up for you. It's just such a cool feeling.
It's amazing finding new bands that you're like, just that experience. I don't know, like, it's hard to really describe like that feeling of like finding a band that you really love and you've never heard of before, and it just kind of like opens up this whole world.
Yeah. And it's crazy because I find myself, I don't know whether it's just like having access to too much with, you know, the internet and Spotify and all that stuff, is like I don't find that, or I'm just getting older, but I just don't find that happening as much. Like, or it's certainly not as intense as it was back when you were first discovering it. And so it's just such a cool experience. I'm trying to like get myself back into just checking out like a ton of new stuff, but it's so hard now. I feel it's almost overwhelming, the access you have to everything now.
A lot.
Yeah.
So much, yeah.
Yeah, go to like if you go to like your Spotify, like is it Discover Weekly, and
Yeah.
a new playlist for you from like bands you like have maybe heard of or they think you would like, and it's just that's interesting. I always find it.
Yeah, and I feel like back then I would have been all about that, but now I'm just like, oh, it's too much. I already have too much to listen to. I don't know what to do.
Like so much music, I can't.
Yeah, there's something to be said about only having so much access to something, and then it just makes it a little easier to take in stuff. But then there's also stuff that I didn't get into because, like even back then, like for some reason, I love NoFX, but then like Blink-182 kind of passed me by, and I never got into them. And like now's not the time to get into Blink-182 for me. It seems like if you didn't get it back then, you missed it. So like it was easy to let some stuff pass you by back then, but now I kind of regret, like, because so many people got into it and I didn't for some reason. I don't know. But there's so much. Well, now I feel like there's just so much media that it's just so hard to, like, because I'm into podcasts and movies and books, and it's just like you just can't do everything.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there.
Yeah.
Overwhelming. We were making a Valentine's playlist for girls like us, and I was trying to think of like all the bands that I've listened to and all the like possible love songs that I know from these bands, and it was just so overwhelming. Like trying to think of all these bands, and I'm like, oh, maybe there's like a new one that I should put on there that I haven't heard yet, and then it's like, oh, now this playlist is 6 hours long. Okay, well.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's crazy. I don't know. It's great. There's a ton of music out there, but but it's definitely hard to keep track of it all.
I can only handle so much.
Yeah, I'm only one person.
I'm only one person, definitely. So you said that the Beatles were like your biggest like inspiration growing up.
Definitely, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So and then you like Ringo's drumming inspired your drumming.
Ringo and Dave Grohl are probably my two biggest influences, is just in terms of, hit really hard and keep really good time. That's about all I care about, is being a drummer.
There you go, Raven.
Yeah.
I was like,
I've been trying. It's weird because I feel like a lot of people go through it where it's like they feel like they're just not making any progression, and like they've been stuck in the same spot forever and ever, and then it's like that light bulb moment where it's like, well, no, I know how to play all these songs already that like I didn't know how to play before, but I still feel like shit playing, like, like.
Yeah, I definitely. Yeah, right. Yeah, it's well, and drums are hard too, because the main reason I ended up, or one of the reasons I ended up playing in every band I could, was to just I never had a place where I could just go play drums, especially like when I started touring and playing kind of more seriously post high school, and at that point it was just the only time I was playing was if I was at band rehearsal or at a show. So I didn't have like a practice space or my own practice space or a place to set up my drums, in my house or anything like that. So I was just like, well, I'll play in every band, and then I'll just be playing all the time, and that's how I'll practice. And that's essentially what I did. And it was the only way for me to really be able to play all the time, but I also didn't have that time of like, let me just sit and play for 6 hours and try to learn this, complicated, Frank Zappa song or something. It's like I was only playing what I was, playing with bands with punk rock bands basically. So I was never really challenging myself, which that probably would have helped if I had a spot to just go and play drums on my own and do my own thing for a while or whatever. But it certainly didn't hurt to just be playing all the time anyway.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Did the bands just like call you up? They're like, hey, we need like a fill in. What's my
I was doing a lot of that. I would do I was playing in, even when I first started, probably around 2000, right after high school, I joined a band called Dirt Bike Annie. There was a pop punk band from New York City, and then immediately the Ergs also started around the same time with my high school buddies, and then I started playing in this band called the Kung Fu Monkeys, which was another New York pop punk band, and then started playing in this band, the Unlovables, like right around the same time too. So immediately I was in 4 bands, and then that just kind of became how I did things. I just was always juggling bands, and then just from that, I would get calls like, "Oh, our drummer can't make this show. Can you do it?" And I got really good at learning entire sets worth of material in one day. I was filling in on tour for this band, the Copyrights, and we were going on tour with Masked Intruder, and the opening band was this band that we had toured with in Europe called Not Scientists. And I'd already toured with them in Europe, so I'd seen them, probably like 25 times or something. I'd watch the set every night. And then they were flying to Chicago, meeting up with us, and then we were starting this tour down to Fest. And I remember hearing Adam from Copyrights getting a call. It's like, "Hey guys, how you doing? How'd everything go?" Oh, he didn't get in. Like one of they flew in from France, and I think they kind of was trying to fly under the radar, like not go legit to get in here. Actually, I probably shouldn't say this on cut the name of the band out of the record. But no. So anyway, like their drummer didn't get into the country for whatever reason, and I ended up. I just put my headphones. I didn't even have to like ask what happened. I knew that the drummer didn't get into the country, so I just put my headphones in, started listening to the band, and then that night I played the first show, and I did that whole tour as the drummer for this band because their drummer didn't get in. And I was just like so used to learning songs that I just listened to the songs like 100 times and then got up and played the show. And it was crazy, but that was the most intense, like no warning, I knew I had to do this kind of thing.
I was gonna say, do you make time to eat food? Like,
there's certainly, and actually, I think that was the year that at Fest, I think I played 13 sets the entire weekend, and I definitely realized like midway through the second day that I hadn't eaten yet, and so I had to quickly scarf some food down. But yeah, sometimes you do forget to eat.
That's intense.
Yeah.
I don't know how he does this.
It was nuts, but it was fun. It was fun. It was pretty crazy. But luckily, and like I wouldn't have been able to do that if we hadn't just toured with them a few months ago in Europe and I hadn't seen them every night. I was like, I always wanted to do a tour where it's 2 bands and you do a 30-day tour, and at the end of the 30 days, the bands do each other's repertoire. Just from repetition of hearing it for 30 days and seeing, like, that's, you see, like, maybe the beginning of the tour and the end of the tour are in the same city, and then you just hear the other band play the other band songs. I always thought that would be, because you kind of just do, just from sheer, you don't even really have to be paying attention. You just get to know the songs just because you've heard them every night for 30 days.
What two bands would you like to hear play each other's material? Not bands.
Oh, yeah, it's a good. Oh, I don't know. There's too many bands, but it would be funny to have like to have it be like kind of a more technical kind of techie punk band and like a pop punk band or something, and like just a Ramones core band or something, like switch and try to play each other's stuff, or do their weird interpretation of what they think the other band's songs sound like.
I think we can compare these two bands a lot, but I would really love to hear Against Me and the Menzingers play each other's.
Yeah, that would be cool.
I would go to all the shows.
Yeah, be a great tour.
I think it would sell out.
Absolutely, definitely.
So, being such a big like Beatles fan, were you ever into like the conspiracy theories?
Yeah, I've read them all. It's so funny. It's so funny to like that people, and that you just some random person writes something in a magazine article and then it becomes fact. Like before the internet, like it just the Paul is dead stuff is funny, but the really funny thing is there was this band called Klaatu, I think is how you pronounce it, but they were just like this pop rock band in like the mid 70s. They happened to be on Capitol Records, and I think some journalist at some point said, this is, the Beatles made a new album. They just called it a different name. And you listen to it, it doesn't sound anything like the Beatles except for the fact that it's kind of psychedelic pop music. But so many people believed it that the Beatles had made a new album in like the mid 70s. It's so funny to think about how easy it was, to get people to believe certain things like that. But no, I never bought into any of the Paul is dead. It's funny to look at the album covers and that could say, 28 if on the license plate, meaning he would have been 28 if he didn't die. I guess I could see that, but I think it's been proven false. I think.
I think so. Not quite sure. I'll say, what about the one about Avril Lavigne being?
Oh yeah.
Wait, what is this?
They said Avril Lavigne she died after her second record, and now there's an impersonator named Melissa that is her.
I had not heard that one. That's hilarious. Yeah, there's so many. Yeah.
So many different ones.
They compare her face to like her old face, and like it's.
People get really into it and really detailed about it. Like they dissected like her face. Like they had taken like 2 snapshots and were like pinpointing like the differences. Like it was crazy.
That is nuts. Yeah, there was the whole like, not to get political, but there was the fake Melania thing for a while. It's like, I don't know, is that true? That can't be true.
That was wild too. Like the pictures, I don't know.
I was looking at it and I was like, could be, I guess. I don't know.
Prom, I can see where they're going with this.
Yeah, right. I can, but
how high were they when they?
Yeah.
Where did this come from? But yeah, definitely interesting. Like thinking about the Beatles, I immediately think of like the Paul.
Yeah. And I don't know, it's so funny because they were like the biggest band in the world at that point, and so of course there was going to be just random people saying crazy things.
Oh yeah.
And it's funny how it's to this day people are talking about it still. So
2021, still talking.
Yeah.
Or like if you play, what is it? You play the record backwards, and it's like Hail Satan or something.
Yeah. There's all and yeah, there's a ton of all that stuff. Especially if you go into the metal, if you play Black Sabbath backwards, there's secret messages. I don't think any of that's true, but it makes for an interesting story. It makes people pay attention to that record for that much longer.
And like they put that in your ear and like the subliminal messaging of like, oh, I better buy that.
And then people actually put subliminal messages in their records and
that too.
And
definitely.
free to find.
Speaking of subliminal messages, did you ever see the movie Josie and the Pussycats?
Oh my
Yes, yeah, I love it. I love it, and because I feel like before the movie came out, the soundtrack came out, and I'm a gigantic Letters to Cleo fan. So I remember going to Virgin Megastore at 9 a.m. the morning that soundtrack came out just to hear some new Kay Hanley vocals, and of course that record is one of the best pop punk records of all time. It's incredible. I couldn't believe how great these songs were. And then the movie did not disappoint. And I love all the product placement and the subliminal messaging in that movie. It's so funny making fun of all that.
Yes, I love that movie, and I feel like people are weird with that movie. They're like, that movie is awful, or they're like, that movie is the greatest thing ever in existence.
Yeah, it's a bit polarizing.
So much, or just don't get it.
Yeah, I think it's perfect. In fact, I should watch that movie again. It's been a while.
I was gonna say it came out like what, 2001?
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, probably 2001, 2002, something like that.
Years old? What?
Yeah, right. I know.
I was like, I saw that in theaters.
Yeah. No, it was. I'll never forget buying the 20th anniversary edition of Nirvana's Nevermind and feeling very old because I bought it the day it came out the first time. And I was like, there's no way I'm 20 years older now. I don't feel 20 years older.
You're like, I don't look 20 years older.
Yeah, I hope. I hope I'm not 20 years older than. Nope. And now I'm about to. This year is the 30th anniversary, so here we go. God damn it.
Keeps coming.
Yeah, it's very strange to. Where does the time go?
I'm not quite sure. I wish I knew.
Yeah.
Exactly. So what was it like transitioning from working with like so many bands to doing solo work?
Yeah, I like when the Ergs broke up, I kind of decided that I didn't want to. I needed a break from being the songwriter in the band. For some reason, I was feeling burnt out and writer's blocky. Like I hadn't written a song in a couple years. Like even the last couple Ergs things, like I only had like a song or two on, and I just didn't feel like writing. And when we broke up, I took it as like, okay, I'm just gonna play drums in everybody's band, and that's when I just joined even more bands and played in everybody else's bands and didn't do anything really creatively. But then like I think I got asked to play a solo show at a festival that I was already playing with someone else, and just kind of got up and did solo acoustic versions of Erg songs, and it went well, and so I kind of just did it. Whenever anybody would ask me to do it, I would do it. So I spent a few years just playing my old Erg songs live. And every once in a while, I'd write a song and put it out on like a 7-inch or something. But it was really only, it was just something to do to play to keep playing the Erg songs. Really, like, because I didn't feel like I still liked the songs, and if people wanted to hear them, even if it was just solo electric or solo acoustic, I would do it. But then it wasn't until like 2016 that I actually made my first solo album, and then that's when I feel like the actual solo career started of like actually trying to keep it going, as opposed to just playing shows whenever I was asked to. I was actually putting more effort into being a touring musician in that regard. But it was cool to just like, I don't know, just to write songs and just kind of record them and have it be exactly what I heard in my head, to be able to dictate that to other people, and just be less of like, I don't know, it's always been like kind of a collaboration, and I love whenever I play with other people. I respect what they're bringing to the table, but it was a different dynamic than being in the Ergs and having like other people have veto power on things. That's the only real difference, is that I kind of had the veto power of, but I never really use it, because whenever I play with people who I enjoy playing with and they have great ideas, and I'm like, that I wouldn't have thought of that. That's amazing. Yes, please keep doing that. But yeah, that's the only real difference, is that I suppose I have the final say, even though I don't really care about having the final say. I don't know. Yeah, it's been fun to make these. The last, like, each record has been a different lineup of people, and a different, like, kind of going for a different sound, and kind of finding the people that I wanted to help me get to that sound. So everything sounds totally different in the Mikey Erg like solo project thing, and I think I love that. Like that's kind of my favorite thing about doing it, is that I can kind of make everything sound how I'm feeling at that moment. You know, like Tentative Decisions doesn't sound anything like Waxwell Castles, and Waxwell Castles doesn't sound anything like this new record. But it's all under the same umbrella of, Mikey Erg. So that's, I just think that's a cool and interesting way to go about doing things. Whereas, like, to this day, even when I go back and like we'll do an Erg show and we sound like the Ergs, and that's awesome. But I like that I can go and play with other people and do other things and have that sound different, even though it's the same songwriter doing it.
Right on. Definitely. I think it's cool when people like like I know people want you to like keep a certain sound, like, oh, you were in the Erg, so you should sound like this, but
right.
Like, I have so many things that I listen to, and I'm inspired by so many different genres, and
yeah, I mean that's the thing. That's what I just really want to do and love to do. So I'm glad I can do it, and I hope people are along for the ride. And, and if there's a record, I mean, there's certainly records I don't like by bands that I love, like, or that I didn't like when they first came out, and then 10 years later found out like I was ready for it, So I'm into that too, that's the kind of music I want to make records that are, you can come back to them in 5 years and maybe find something that you appreciate in them with some more like life experience or whatever. I don't know. But that's the kind of stuff I like to listen to. So I think I just end up making that kind of stuff.
I like how that's worded. Like you weren't ready for a particular record. I don't think of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like that's, because that's I don't know. I kind of, it sometimes annoys me when people are like, oh, that record sucks. It's like, well, no, it doesn't suck. You don't like it.
Yes.
Because you don't like it doesn't mean someone else doesn't love it,
Right. And that's because there's certainly, I mean, there's a million records I love that I try to get people into, and they're like, this is absolute trash. What are you talking about? This is just noise. And it is just noise, but I love it for some reason. But yeah, so, and that's the thing. I have no interest in making, 10 records that sound exactly the same. So that's the cool thing about being able to kind of just do my own thing and play with whoever I want to play with at that moment. And you know, I love everybody that's ever played in the band, and like, you know, you know, each record has been totally different. It's been rad. I'm psyched on how the discography is turning out.
I've heard good things
Mm.
from listeners. So do you think that being able to make decisions in like your solo career, do you think that's like more difficult than collaborative efforts with like a band?
It's I don't know if it's more difficult. It's definitely like, you know, I don't know. It's having a like it's just different. You know, it's like having a band that is a band is it's like it's easy because you're not the only one calling the shots, and like I don't know, but it is nice to have like a bit more freedom to, you know, if like I feel like I certainly couldn't have made Waxbill Castles wouldn't have sounded the way I wanted it to if I made it with like a punk band that I was in. You know, like I don't know, it's I don't know. It's not easy to I don't know. I don't know how to answer the question. But
different experience.
it's just a different experience. Yeah. It's, you know, but I like having both options. I like being able to go to I like having a bunch of different options to explore whatever kind of songs my brain feels like writing at that moment, you know. And that's ultimately what I think an album is a snapshot of that time in your life or whatever, you know.
So tell us about like your new single Rumblestrip. Like where did that come from?
Well, so this record is pretty funny in that you know, it kind of started getting together with so to go back a bit, in February, right before kind of COVID really hit, I did a tour where it was 4 different bands. I played in all 4 of them. It was a band called Doc Hopper, Mikey Erg band, a band called Loose Behavior, and a band called The Slow Death. The Slow Death and Loose Behavior were the same group of people, and Doc Hopper and Mikey Erg were the same group of people in that it was a 3-piece. Doc Hopper was my friend Chris Pierce on vocals and me on drums, and our friend Fid on bass. And for Mikey Erg, we had switched, and I would sing and play guitar, and Chris would play drums, and Fid would play bass. And then Loose Behavior and Slow Death was the same group of people, but just playing different songs. So there was five people in the van playing 4 sets worth of material. Anyway, the Mikey Erg band on that tour we'd never played in that lineup before. It was cool, kind of sounded kind of rough and punk rock and raw, and it was fun to play with those guys. And so about probably late summer, we decided we've been keeping to ourselves in our houses, let's get together and just get loud for a day and kind of just be able to see other people for a second other than just sitting in our houses by ourselves. Just put our masks on and get into different corners of the room and fucking just play some music. And so we did that, and it was fun. So then I just sat down a couple weeks later, and I was like, I'm going to write some songs. Let's record some stuff, because I wanted to get that lineup on tape, really. And so I sat down and just wrote 8 songs in about an hour. They all just kind of just fell out of me very quickly. And so I sat down with literally a list of song titles that I'd collected over the last few months, and then just, you know, song title would pop up. I would think to myself, what does this song sound like? I would play the song, play some chords, mumble a melody, get it down on tape, and then move on to the next song. Play some chords, mumble a melody, move on to the next song. So like that's how this entire record was written. And so Rumblestrip in particular, I just had that song title for months, maybe even years. Like it was just sitting in my phone as like a song title, and it just fell out of me, and it just kind of it's kind of about like when you're on tour for like 10 months and you're just sick of it by the end of it, and you're just like, I want to go home. Like it's just a simple stupid song about wanting to get off the road for a bit, but it just kind of fell out. And I feel like those are the best songs. I feel like a lot of songwriting podcasts and stuff that I listen to, it's always like the huge mega hits that the songwriters are like, yeah, I don't know, I just sang it one day, and that's, you know, the most effortless ones seem to be the ones that people really respond to. So once that fell out, I was like, okay, this might be a good batch of songs to record, since they were pretty easy to write. So I'm very excited about the record, actually, because it's just, you know, when we were recording it, it was just like, wow, this was so easy, and it was so cool, and I'm glad we got to do it. And it wouldn't have happened if life was normal and I was on the road the entire year, you know.
So you said as like a child, you never really, like, you only were into music, and that was like a really creative kind of outlet. So during the pandemic and everything, have you tried other things like now or no?
No, not really. No, I have expanded my palette a bit in the years since then, but it's mostly just pop culture. I've gotten very into movies, gotten very into I've always read a lot of books, but yeah, I'm still not into sports, still not into you know, much, still not into much of anything else that doesn't have to do with pop culture. But, you know, there are worse things. Yeah, I get up and run every morning, and that's kind of my exercise for the day. And I've been doing that for a few years, and that's been a good thing to get up and clear your head and then start your day. But yeah, no, I still really, I don't have much interest in anything but music. Unfortunately, or fortunately.
You're like, just my morning running.
Yeah, right. There's already too much music, so it's why fill your head with anything else?
Do you listen to music when you run, or you just like?
I usually, actually, that's when I'll listen to podcasts and stuff. I like listening to the conversations while I'm running, and then I used to listen to music a lot when I was running, but it kind of, I got more into, I feel like you can kind of lose yourself in you know, Mark Maron having a conversation with someone, or, you know, like, so I like listening to just people talking while I'm running, and I feel like that's better because you're a little more alert. There's not just like loud music in your ears. You can hear if something, you know, if a car is coming or something. Yeah. It's better than music, but yeah. But you know, then most of the day I try to listen to a few albums a day, and a lot of times I'll just get obsessed with a certain artist and then just listen to that for days on end. So my day is mostly filled with music.
You're remembering to eat, right?
Yes, and remembering to eat, definitely. That's actually is another thing that I've gotten much more into. I used to be a very, very, very picky eater and wouldn't eat much of anything except for, fast food. But now I've become much more of a semi-foodie. So that's kind of my main when I go on tour nowadays. Is my initial thing I look up when I get a tour itinerary is like, okay, cool. We're going to be in Nashville on this day. Between sound check and the show, I'm going to go check out these 2 food places that I haven't gotten to go to yet. That's my thing when I go on tour now, is trying to try all these restaurants that I've heard about. I have like a running list in my phone of like restaurants in each city that I've seen on, Food Network or whatever that I got to check out when I'm traveling. So that's kind of my favorite part about traveling at this point. So I have gotten into food, so that's there's that.
I'll say your phone must be full, like voice memos, lists.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that a lot of lists. There's song title lists, voice memos of songs that are forgotten about, and list of restaurants and lists of movies that I need to watch, and a lot of lists that I just don't have the time to find to go through. But eventually.
So busy, so many things.
Yeah.
To do.
It's true.
So what has been like, do you have any like go-to like pandemic pandemic records or anything that you've been listening to?
Nothing specific, but I will say that because I spend so much time on the road that it's been really, really nice to actually have my vinyl around. And like that is a different. I feel like right in the beginning of the pandemic, there was a LA Times article that went around that was like, use this time to immerse yourself in listening to an album. Like put the album on and just pour over the jacket and immerse yourself in it. And it was something that I used to do all the time that I just don't do much anymore, because I'm usually just I listen to tons of music and stuff when I'm in the van on tour, but it's just I'm not looking at the liner notes. I'm not looking at the jacket sleeve, it's so it's been really nice to just put a record on. You kind of have to pay attention to it. You have to make sure that you take the needle off so your needle doesn't get ruined, and and flip the record over, and and you have the big old jacket with all the liner notes and all the lyrics and all that stuff. Like I've been really enjoying my LPs during this time, which has been really nice, because there were a few years where I just didn't touch my vinyl, so that's been great. But yeah, there's no one thing. It's been there were a few weeks where I just got all my Husker Du records out and was listening to them for a few weeks and just being like, oh, what a fucking great band, and then switched to XTC and oh, what a fucking great band. I kind of go through these phases of artists sometimes where I'll just get obsessed with, especially if an artist has like a deep discography. I'll just go through in order, one by one, all the records, and just fall in love with these bands again. And it's nice to do that when you have the album covers and can pour over who mixed side B, and just take in all that information again.
Take out, like, look at the liner. Let's read it all. Read. Like,
it's the best spot. Yeah, it's because it's what I used to do it all. I used to just, the names of the producers were just as big of rock stars as the actual people making the music. So yeah, and I miss that. I wish I guess they're starting to do. There's definitely a bit of a kind of a movement going around that, like, for Spotify to put the credits in the metadata, like who mastered the records, who mixed them, who produced them, because it's stuff that obviously these people should be getting credit for it, and I want to know, like, that's I miss knowing who mixed these records and who mastered them, and
it's important, to know who's
absolutely
behind the scenes
yeah
kind of people, because they make the record happen. It's not like
it wouldn't it wouldn't sound the way it did. It wouldn't exist if it weren't for these people. So I do hope that if we're going to be in this, if it's going to keep continuing into this convenient and wonderful streaming thing where I like that someone could put out a record and I have it's in my pocket on Friday morning and I can listen to the new the new Jeff Rosenstock record on the Friday morning it came out, because it's just in my pocket already because it's on my Spotify. I do love that aspect of it. But yeah, it's a different listening experience, and actually owning the physical copy and being able to read through the lyrics while they're singing and check out who, whatever liner notes, what they were influenced by at the moment that they were writing this record, if they wrote that in. It's just like there were things that used to be printed in the jackets that were wonderful things to read that went along with the records, and I like having that too.
Yeah, definitely. I love having that like tangible like piece of music.
Yeah, it's actually I'm glad that vinyl kind of made more of a comeback, because that's like if I'm buying a physical product, I'll buy the vinyl just because it's the bigger thing, and it's got more of the liner notes and stuff, and I do enjoy that we do have that. Like, that's become a thing that's available to us again.
That's like becoming like the thing again to buy vinyl, and everybody's kind of putting all their records out that way, and it's good. It's a good thing.
And I think we've realized that it's there are records from the 30s that still play to this day, and there aren't I own CDs that I bought in 1986 that don't play anymore, like, and not because they've rotted. Like, it's not just from scratching; it's just like some of them just don't last, and like most vinyl lasts, so it's good to know that it'll be around.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so I guess I guess I'm on my final question for the day.
All right.
So we asked one other band this, but if we were to look at your Google search history, what would we find?
You'd find a lot of searching for bands' discographies on Wikipedia, and a lot of just a lot of looking up various movies and music. And I do a lot of deep dive Wikipedia things. And let's see, what else is there? There's you'll find a lot of searches for the Steve Hoffman forum, which is a message board, an audiophile message board that has a lot of it's a lot of people talking about what pressing of a certain record sounds the best and things like that. I use that as a resource of whether to, if I'm going to buy a record, I search to find out if if anybody on the Hoffman forum has already bought it and says that it sounds like shit, or it's not a good pressing, or there are better pressings out there to get. A lot of that, a lot of nerdy trying to figure out whether this is audiophile grade or not.
I'm like, how did I know that was?
Yeah, I got, I'm pretty much a one-trick pony.
Right, I love that. Oh, that was funny. Raven, did you have any other questions?
Do you just want to plug like your social media and where people can find you and all of that fun stuff?
Yeah, I'm at Mikey Erg on, Instagram, Twitter, and MikeyErg.bandcamp.com is where all the music is. It's all up on Spotify and Apple Music and all that stuff too. And yeah.
Well, thank you for being here with us. We really appreciate it.
Thanks so much. This was awesome. Thank you for having me.